golfj.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Golf J podcast on FingerLakes1.tv. I am Jim Sinicropi alongside Rhett Ticconi and Doug Brown here inside the FingerLakes1.com studios on the third floor of the North Park building in Seneca Falls, New York on Monday, September 18th, 2017. And tonight we'll talk about the BMW Championship won by Marc Leishman, the second to last event of the FedEx Cup playoffs and the PGA Tour season. We'll take a good look at the Tour Championship to preview I guess it's the Super Bowl of the PGA Tour. Not quite as heralded as the big game for the NFL, but it's actually shaping up to be a pretty exciting event. So a lot of stuff to talk about tonight surrounding those two events. So I guess let's start, guys, with a look at the last weekend's event, the BMW Championship. Marc Leishman became the second straight Australian to go wire-to-wire at Conway Farms, taking the BMW Championship in record fashion. He took control for day one, going wire-to-wire, but the top 70 players in the FedEx Cup battled it out to be part of the 30 heading to East Lake this weekend in the Tour Championship. Leishman's winning score of 261 topped his previous BMW Championship record of 262 set by Tiger Woods back in 2007 and Jason Day, fellow Australian, in 2015. And his 5-shot winning margin was the third biggest of the season behind the 7-stroke victories by Hideki Matsuyama at the WGC HSBC and Justin Thomas at the Sony Open back in Hawaii. So Leishman's a guy who's had a lot of great accomplishments, in his career, but doesn't seem to get the recognition that maybe somebody. He was a Rookie of the Year in 2009, so you could argue that since 2009 he hasn't done too much. He won the Travelers Championship in 2012, almost won the Masters in 2013. He was inside the top 6 at 3 of the last 4 Open Championships, including a playoff loss in 2015 at St. Andrews. He won the Arnold Palmer Invitational earlier this season. But now, he finds himself inside that top 5 at the Tour Championship. And, maybe the best Australian golfer in the world right now, which is saying a lot, right?
I thought you were going to say of all time.
Yeah, I did too.
Who's the greatest Australian golfer of all time?
Greg Norman.
Yeah, I think.
Wait, Peter Thompson.
Yeah, Peter Thompson, Jason Day not there yet.
What about Ian Baker Finch?
No, he's from New Zealand, I think.
Yeah.
So. Well, I don't think he could compare to Norman. Thompson, if you go by total major wins, Thompson would probably be it. But Norman was like the number 1 player in the world for how many years? Close to a decade.
Norman, aside from the majors, is one of the greatest players of all time. So he has to be the best Australian by far, I think.
I'll stay with Peter Thompson.
All right.
Maybe that's for another show.
Nobody knows him.
But maybe 10 years from now it'll be Marc Leishman.
Could be.
Well, he's being rewarded for his consistency for sure. Like you said, from 2009 on, he's done a lot of great things, and it's finally coming to fruition for him. I think he's got a great shot to win this whole thing next week.
Yeah, he seems to be one of those guys who was always on the fringe for several years in a lot of events. Because what you just said here, he could have won a few other events that would have been big. It's a shot or two here or there, and you win, right?
Yep.
And we might have been talking about him in a totally different vein. But now he's won this year alone, just winning the Arnold Palmer tournament, and now this one. That's a great year.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous year. And he's not done yet. We got one more event, obviously. And he's a good player.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, one shot can make all the difference. So top 6 of 3 of the last 4 Open Championships and a playoff loss. I mean, that he wins in that playoff. He's got a major. Everything's different, but he's right on that cusp. And probably of all the people that are on the cusp, like we talked about the best players to never win a major all year long, especially with Sergio finally winning one. And then who else won the major this year for the first time?
Well, Justin Thomas.
Yeah, Justin Thomas, who was young. But we never mentioned Marc Leishman's name.
No.
Which, he's stepping up into that class, I'd say, by now.
I say now he's definitely in that class. we've missed them then, because
Yeah.
the results that you're indicating here, really, we should have been talking about them.
So many guys that have just, not come out of nowhere, but there's just so many guys now. It's just so much fun to watch golf these days. It's not a 2 or 3 horse race. It's 10, 12 guys really any given week.
Yep.
And we're seeing that. This is one of those times, and I know we'll get into it a lot more, but man, what a great ending to the FedEx Cup this year, coming down this weekend.
I agree.
It's going to be awesome.
So he's Rookie of the Year in 2009, so he's been playing on our tour now for 8 full seasons, right? So he certainly paid his dues. And he's won a little bit along the way.
Yep.
Financially, I'm sure he's won very much. But so in 8 years, I mean, he's earning his stripes. I would assume he's got to be 30 years old, 32 years old. I don't know how old he is. But he could be
about right, yeah.
typically in the golfing prime.
Sure.
Other than this young bucks we got going through right now. Typically is that age group when he really gets going. So it's interesting what the next 5 years might do for this guy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got Leishman. Let's say he wins the FedEx Cup. Let's say he doesn't win the tournament this week, but wins the FedEx Cup. That could happen given his place. I think he's 4th right now in the standings. So top 5 control their own destiny. He's like Justin Thomas had such a better overall year if that's the case. If Leishman wins the Tour Championship and finishes the season with back-to-back wins and 3 wins on the season, but still Thomas with the major, that's the thing. The NFL season ends or the NBA finals end and you're like, there's your champion. There's the best team this year.
Right.
In golf, we've been lucky in recent years, I think, with Spieth and McIlroy. But, Bill Haas won it one year. I don't think anybody thought he was the best. So
even when Furyk won it, I don't think anybody thought he was the best that year.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely been a handful of them that.
Billy Horschel.
Yeah, Horschel. He got hot, won 2 tournaments. And even, was it last year or the year before? Did Rory win it last year?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think you would have said he was the best one all year.
Got hot in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had a decent year. That's all he had. So your question would be, would Marc Leishman be the player of the year if he wins this coming weekend? And my comment would be no, he's not player of the year. I think Justin Thomas had a better year by far.
Yeah. I think Justin Thomas had a better year by far than pretty much everybody.
So is the FedEx Cup determine the champion of the PGA Tour, or is the player of the year like the one that you should remember?
I think
so measured different because you got the FedEx Cup becomes financial when it's all said and done, right? And the player of the year is voted on by the players.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, FedEx Cup's just the money race.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, huge money. Absolutely.
$15 million for the winner, right?
It's a big deal. It's exciting. But yeah, at the end of the day, some of those majors aren't even PGA Tour events technically. So, I mean, they're standalone. The Masters,
they all get FedEx Cup points though, so they would be included in the whole point system for the FedEx Cup. But I will talk a little bit more about maybe some tweaks that could be made to the FedEx Cup and the Tour Championship. But there were a few players that snuck into that top 30, and they get a big payday no matter what, just for showing up, even though they have a little to no chance of winning the FedEx Cup. Tony Finau, Sergio Garcia, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay all played their way into the FedEx top 30 this past weekend, matching the record for the number of players that actually got in that were on the outside looking in. Oosthuizen, Brendan Steele, and Henrik Stenson and Bill Haas, 2 former FedEx Cup champs, were the players to fall out. And I want to talk about Oosthuizen for a second. 0.72 of a point is all that stood between him and the Tour Championship. And he had the flu during the opening rounds of the BMW, and he shot like 8 over, I think it was 8 over first round. And he finished the weekend 66-67. And I got to tell you something. I had like the best DraftKings team this week. It was stacked, right?
Except for.
Well, I originally said, I like Jason Day a lot this week. He's been playing good. He's got great record at Conway Farms. So he was on my roster. And then the news breaks that Jason Day fired his caddy. And I'm like, these guys never play good the first round with a new caddy. And so I went in, I dropped him, I added Oosthuizen, not having any idea the guy had the flu. And look what happens. Day finishes, where was he? Third, fourth place.
So.
I had Leishman on the roster as the winner. I had Charlie Hoffman. My team was stacked. I would have done very, very well if I had kept Jason Day, but I didn't. So Oosthuizen killed me.
Stinking flu.
Yeah, I think I came in with the contest I was in. There might have been 5,000, one of those 5,000 entries for $5, and I came in like 600th. I cashed, but with Day in there, I could have been top 10. And that would have been serious. But
I'm surprised you gave up Jason Day because you've been kind of joined
at
the hip with him.
I got spooked with the caddy thing. I really did. That was all I needed to. I should have stuck with him. But if you looked in the past recent history with guys like McElroy and Mickelson, they have not done well the first week back with a new caddy. But Jason Day did. But let's talk about that, Jason Day. Here's another guy whose caddy is their longtime mentor and coach since they were kids, and just abruptly, 2 events before the season end, makes a change. And, we can only speculate as to why, but, why not just wait it out a couple more weeks? Like something would happen.
Right. If wait 2 more weeks, it can be just do it during the winter. Because that gentleman who was caddying for him, I can't think of his name, but he's been his mentor and his guiding, maybe even a
father figure.
Right, yeah, for many, many years.
Colin Swather.
That's right. And it just seems like they could have just separated ways and have been extremely amicable. I've done this long enough. It's time for us to branch out. Yeah. I'll be in the crowd. I'll be his coach. I just won't be his caddy, right? And all of a sudden, with 2 weeks to go, it looks like there's problems. And there may not be.
But there's got to be something.
Yes.
Or like you say, why not just go 2 more weeks?
Right.
Well, you think, I don't know, there's 2 schools of thought maybe on that. Maybe he wanted to get his new caddy on the bag before the President's Cup in 2 weeks. That's a much bigger deal for the international team than it is for the American team, I feel.
Yes, but Tour Championship, $15 million.
I think I'd rather have my new caddy at the President's Cup than these last 2 weeks. I'd rather be solid.
Well, I agree, but I'm just saying I think he's wanting to get him on the bag leading up to the last 2 weeks before he, just doesn't want to go cold into that. I don't know. It's the mind of Jason Day. Who knows what's going on? But
anybody call you, Jim? Because you got some caddy experience.
I know. I'm still waiting, and if any PGA Tour players are dropping, I will forego the remainder of the podcast hosting duties to get on your bag.
Okay.
I think I could breathe some life into a young player's
I'm
career.
Sure you could.
So you could fly back next Monday and do the podcast,
do the show?
And then
I'll
fly
do it
back
remotely.
out for
Think
the
of the
President's
inside
Cup.
info I'll have.
Oh, yeah.
But once you're a caddy, you're not supposed to talk about things. They're very tight-lipped. Nobody wants to be the one to get another player in trouble or leak a rumor, but certainly those caddies see a whole other side of things.
Sure they do.
So, other thing, Jason Day, while we're on Jason Day, didn't only replace his caddy, but he was the latest player, along with Dustin Johnson, to go away from TaylorMade Spider Tour Red Putter and have success immediately. So this season, that Spider putter, the TaylorMade Spider putter, has just kind of taken over. You see it. It was noticeable how many guys were using it on the tour.
Sure.
And then Dustin Johnson goes away from it and wins, and Jason Day goes away from it this week and does really well, top 5. But this wasn't such a big departure. He used a yet-to-be-released TaylorMade TP collection, Ardmore 2, and it's the same style putter as the Spider. Day noticed an improvement in his alignment that likely came about because they have 3 white lines right on the head of the crown. So for what it's worth, there's another guy going away from what was really the hottest putter on the tour lately.
I'm surprised in a sense because the Spider first came out, there was a line on the top, and then that tour model took the line off because the tour players didn't like the line. All right, and he was one of the guys that was adamant about removing the line. And now he's got a putter with basically 3 lines, right? 3 white lines. So it's interesting because You're right. He had first time he had that red one or that maroon colored one, and then lately he's using a black one. And now I didn't see what his putting was over the weekend, but these guys didn't like the line on the putter because they could line it up themselves. Yeah. They didn't need the aid or the assistance, right? Because they have another putter, because I have one that's it's an aluminum looking one, platinum they call it, and it has a line, okay, which comes beneficial. But the tour guys didn't want it.
You like the line.
I do.
And you've putted well.
I putted well with it. I've sold a few since. People like it.
Yeah.
And it does roll the ball very well. But these guys didn't like the line, which I understand. They're a cut above, and it's personal preference. But why didn't they just put the line on the spider? Take it back to the shop, mill a line into it, paint it, and away you go.
You think that the spider is a flash in the pan? You think?
I don't. I think it's very good. And the one they have is heel toe weighted. The one I have is not. So you can adjust it a little bit. The weight's left in and out, all that. But I saw one last week. I played at Turning Stone, and I saw one of the tour models, and it's a very nice looking, sleek. It was the black one, and it was a sharp looking putter. So I don't think it's gone.
Just seems like everybody always goes back to the blade at some point.
Yeah. Well, these guys, putting is so personal and fickle, and I've seen our host down at the country club this year with 4, 5, 6 putters. Right?
He's back to his even roll, though.
And I did go back to Garen Rice even roll and been putting well.
And I've got a collection of them, as most people do. Yeah. So if it doesn't behave, you got to teach it a lesson. You put it in the closet for a little while, and you go try something else.
True.
And be wary of the guy with a new putter, but sooner or later that'll make a couple of errors, and it'll be back into being normal. But how many times do you see a guy go buy a new putter and have 30 putts?
Yeah, and all of a sudden he's revolutionized his game, and then a week later he's
$20 you can have the putter.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're just looking for, the right feel for that day and that golf course, and a different look sometimes. Some should make more of a dramatic change than Jason Day's looks like it's subtle, all right? But some should maybe make more of a dramatic change. We talked about Rory maybe going left-handed, being dramatic because he's putting so bad. Yeah. But here's a guy that's been, let's face it, for the last 4 or 5 years, Jason Day's been putting lights out, all right? He's probably only second to Jordan Spieth and the putts we see people make on TV.
Right.
And most of them have been with that spider, whether it be the red one or the black one. So I just think he'll go back. It's just something that need a change of pace.
Yeah, and like you said, that's the thing with the putter. I'm a guy that wants to think that I would just have one putter and really love it and use it all the time through thick and thin, but sometimes you just need to look at something different.
Yeah.
Putting's hard. The hole's small. Can you imagine how different the game would be if the hole was just another half an inch wider in diameter? How much different the game would be?
Wouldn't you still lip out?
You would, but
less though.
Yeah. You'd make a lot more of the shorter ones.
How much do you think a handicap would drop with a hole?
I think quite a bit.
Yeah,
5, 6
a half
strokes?
an inch diameter would basically, take a hole like this. This is the golf hole now, probably right like that, right? Yeah. And it would take it like that.
Yeah.
That's a major difference.
Yeah, I would say it would shave 6 shots off my score.
Yeah, I agree. That's
more chip-ins, more hole-outs, more short putts made, more long putts made.
More holes in one?
More holes in one, sure.
I'm looking for one, so let's go.
Think how many times you burn the edge, and not even lip outs, just roll it just a little bit by that it would pull it in if it was that much wider.
If you make it big enough, every putt's straight.
It'll speed up the pace of play.
Well, I think that golf is known as a diabolical game, and there's 2 reasons for it. One, it's difficult to hit the golf ball, so you can become very frustrated trying to hit the golf ball to a point that even a seasoned golfer feels like they just can't hit it at all.
Right.
But the other reason is that getting the ball in the hole is difficult because the hole's so small. So, I struggle with short putts, and so I wouldn't change a thing, but it's interesting to say just if the founding fathers of golf had decided to make the hole a little bigger, man, I wonder what would have happened. Would golf have been better? Would it be more golfers, less golfers? Who knows?
A lot more birdies out there.
Yeah, and as far as the PGA Tour goes, there would be a lot more 57s and 58s.
Oh, yeah, 54.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, I mean, you look at it from our perspective, you look at it from their perspective. I mean, you're going from a what do you 4?
Yeah.
You're going down to a +2 maybe.
Yeah.
You're going down to a 2. I'm getting into the single digits.
I like the sounds of all of that.
I think we should really start pushing for this.
Think about it. Jimmy says he can save 6 shots, then the tour guys can save 6 shots as well. That takes their scoring average of 68 down to 62. Average.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be sweet.
So there'd be some 57s, 58s all day long.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it sounds like fun, but I think at the end of the day, it would hurt the game. But just something interesting to think about. But speaking of rules, Sergio took some time on 18 after his ball went in a hand. Brownie, why don't you explain, your take on what happened with Sergio yesterday on the last hole?
So he hits the ball in a hazard, a lateral hazard. It's painted on red both sides. It's got some rocks, a little bit of water in it, and it's over on the right-hand side of the hole, and it's up against the wall of the bleachers, with the advertisements on it and all that stuff. And he convinces the official that he's going to try to skip the ball off the rocks, basically backwards, have it ricochet back to the hole, because the green on the ricochet would be back over this way. Right. So because of that, if he swings that way, his club's going to hit the facade of the bleachers, right? And the rule official accepted it. And so because of that, he gets relief from the temporary immovable obstruction, what they call that, right? But he's in a hazard, and that was what was perplexing.
You never get a drop in the hazard, essentially. Like, that's one of the things.
First time I've ever seen it.
No, you can't move loose impediments in a hazard. You can't take a drop from a hazard. You can't take an unplayable lie from a hazard.
Right. That's why it's a hazard. Well, you can take an unplayable lie, but
you're taking your penalty, essentially.
Yeah. So after a bunch of phone calls and it looks like a couple walkie-talkie moves and all this kind of good stuff, they finally grant this guy a drop, but in the hazard. They give him relief from the temporary immovable obstruction. So he messes around, finally drops the ball, but it bounces off the rocks and it goes more than a club length. And he has to do this twice. And then they point to where the ball
bounces it off the rock, which is going to ensure that the ball moves either closer to the hole or more than a club length away. Yeah.
Absolutely. And props to Sergio for pulling us off, because he was on the bubble for making the top 30. Right?
Yeah, he saved par.
Okay? If he makes double bogey, he's out. Okay. So
and I think that might be also obviously why he pushed so hard for
it. Yeah. He knew where he stood.
Maybe he doesn't, on a normal middle of the summer tour event, maybe he doesn't push so hard.
I think the other time he mails it in, takes the drop, chips it on, and makes double bogey.
Right.
So after the 2 drops that skittle around in the rocks, he finally gets to place it down on the rock. But now he plays the shot normally right towards the green.
Yeah, and it still wasn't an easy shot, but he got it over the green, and then he had to take another drop.
Because he hit it in the wall in the next bleachers, right?
Yeah. And saved his par and made it inside the top 30.
Yes, he did. And it took so long. Of course, Mickelson goes over and asks some questions. I don't think he was terribly pleased with what was going on, because it did take 20 minutes at least.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
The group behind, which included Pat Perez, they came walking up to find out what was going on with their clubs in their hand,
right?
Because they couldn't hit. I just don't agree with it. I think the tour has to step back and look at some things here, because they all have bleachers. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
But here's a hazard, so maybe it's a combination of both of those things. But the guy's in a hazard. I just don't buy the whole relief thing, because if that thing was totally flooded, there's no opportunity. There was just kind of a dribble of water, and there's some pretty good sized rocks.
They should have anticipated something like that happening.
They did, I think, because they had a. I've never seen this rule, but they got a. You quoted it in here. Player's ball's in the water, but he could get relief from immovable obstruction. Okay, they gave it to him. So I just never knew that could happen in a hazard.
But then with the way he dropped it, he took even more advantage, which I've always been one to say that the rules don't always hurt you. You can operate within the rules and actually better your position, which is a great reason to know the rules.
Right.
But it just didn't feel right. But how it feels, sometimes the rules don't feel right, and you feel bad for a player. This time, Sergio is able to work his way into the top 30, where he has little to zero chance of winning the FedEx Cup, but he'll be there, and he'll cash a nice check.
Yeah,
it took a long time, too. The first part of that rule is you have to establish your nearest point of relief.
Right.
And he wanted to kind of go back outside. He was inside the hazard, but outside the ditch, basically. There was about a foot worth of land. Right, but that was not closer. Or I'm sorry, it wasn't the closest point. But the closest point was basically on those rocks. Yeah. With a little bit of looks like there was about a foot of mud or clay, and then it came up the bank to the turf. So, but it took forever to do that. And I don't know. There's any other sport. There's delay of games. It was awful.
I'd be interested to see what Mickelson got on that hole. if with the big delay, if it affected him, he missed the whole thing by one shot.
Right.
So it would be interesting to see, like, if he, I don't know what he got, but if he bogeyed it or if he could have birdied it, but he didn't, he parred it because he was frustrated and all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing with like Matt Kuchar at the Open with Jordan Spieth.
Yeah.
You got to be able to play well despite the circumstances.
Right.
So
I think the tour's probably, I would bet, going to review that whole thing. And I'm sure the R&A is going to review the one at the British Open and see if there's a better way to set things up or a better way to officiate that. Because sometimes you don't know what you got to change until something comes up.
I think it's simple. I think you're in a hazard. There's no temporary immovable obstruction in a hazard because it's simple. You're in the hazard. If the wall's in your way, then you just drop out of the hazard.
Right. Or the course just can't have bleachers there.
Right.
They do an awful lot of setup for corporate America for these events to get 30,000 fans right there around that hole. But if the course can't be played properly, then the bleachers shouldn't be there either. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, remember when Hideki Matsuyama was number 1 in FedEx Cup standings heading into the playoffs?
Yep.
Yes.
It seemed hard to believe that the guy in that position could actually play their way out of the top 5, but he did. He's now in 6th place after being cut in the first tournament, then tied for 23rd, and then tied for 47 this week. So actually, I'm wrong. It'll be the 7th seed at East Lake. So
he's kind of not faded away, but
I know it.
He's taking a back seat to a lot of these guys that have been moving up the list.
This guy looked like a machine for a long time this summer, and now he's broken down.
Yeah, still young, still so young. It seems like he's been around forever. Like Leishman seems like the new guy on the block compared to Matsuyama, but Leishman's been around a lot longer than Hideki.
Right.
So, one more interesting thing about Marc Leishman. Did you know that Leishman has 2 clubs in his bag with 21-degree loft? He has a iron. He's got a driving iron, an Apex UT 3-iron, actually, not a driving iron, but he will use it as a driving iron. And he's got a Callaway GBB Epic 7-wood, both 21 degrees. And he uses the 7-wood for a higher ball flight hitting out of the rough and for second shots into par 5s. And he uses the 3-iron as more of a utility because of its penetrating flight, ideal for tee shots, tight tee shots, windy conditions. And but I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I got to thinking, geez, I have a hybrid 4-wood that might be the same loft as one of my irons. I don't know.
Right.
I don't actually know the actual loft on my irons. Here comes the train.
Here comes the train.
Monday night, what time is it? 9:30 train.
Yeah, it's what is it? 3 through pitching wedge, sand wedges where you get into the lofts. I don't know any of the lofts on the other ones.
Well, I'm surprised the clubs haven't evolved to have no numbers on the bottom, just degrees of loft.
Right.
What'd you hit? I hit a 24.
Right.
But maybe someday that'll happen.
Because you'll get that on the hybrids and you get it on your woods, but you don't see it on the 3. So you get close with a 3 hybrid, 3-iron. How close are they really?
Right. Well, to me, they're 2 totally different clubs. He uses them differently, but that 7-wood's going to have center of gravity very low.
Right.
So it gets the weight down underneath the golf ball. It's going to hit that ball a lot higher, and that driving iron is going to have the center of gravity very high.
Yes.
So it produces 2 different things. So typically angles are angles, but that club reacts differently when it's coming in. So, but that 3-iron, he probably hits the 3-iron farther than the 7-wood. Be my bet.
Yeah, probably, especially if you're talking about roll.
Yeah.
If you're getting roll involved. But I just thought that was interesting. I don't know how many tour players are.
I don't think you see a lot of 7-woods.
No, it's actually surprising to see that too.
They do have driving irons. I think quite a few of them will have that. It's a little bit thicker sole. I think you see a lot of them with them, but the 7-wood's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to get 7-wood.
Callaway Epic, they make them. That sounds like the only manufacturer I know that makes them.
Also saw the Callaway Steelheads are coming back. Maybe a topic for another show, but I used to have Steelwood 3-wood and Steelhead 3-wood and 5-wood, but they're coming back with new models this year. So, okay, we're about halfway through. We got to talk Tour Championship. This is the Tour Championship preview episode. It's going to be at East Lake Golf club, 7,385-yard par 70 layout. The original home of the Atlanta Athletic Club, opened in 1908. Revamped by Donald Ross in 1913, best known as the place where Bobby Jones learned the game shooting an 80 by age 11, later stamping his name in history by completing the 1930 Grand Slam at East Lake. 18-hole record 60 by our friend Zach Johnson in the third round of 2007's event. Now, I'm not a huge fan of East Lake being like the course every year that like the finals at. I wouldn't mind seeing it move around to places like Pinehurst and Pebble Beach or Bethpage or Shinnecock or wherever. There's lots of great courses, but Bobby Jones' home course, that's a
little history there.
That's almost enough to justify it. So another thing about this is points are reset. So we had the FedEx Cup points. Guess what? Out of the top 30 that qualify, the points are all reset. So mathematically, everybody has a chance to win. But it is a statistical impossibility almost for the 30th place guy to win the FedEx Cup. He needs the first place guy, Jordan Spieth, to finish in last place, and he needs to finish in first place. And he also needs the other guys in the top 5 to finish way down in the round 25th, 26th, 27th. So
they're all playing really well too. So good luck to that.
Yeah, it's like not going to happen. That's why we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Patrick Cantlay and Sergio. They could play somewhat of a spoiler role, but really have little chance of winning.
Really, you got to go top 10. I wouldn't go past top 10 really to have a real shot at it.
And with the strength of the top 5, I'd be shocked. Because even if you're finishing around 8th or 9th, you would need all the top 5 to finish outside the top 10.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but you like to see the winner be the winner. And you can have a situation where you could have a tournament playoff for first place and then have to follow that with a FedEx Cup playoff. So a lot of unique things could happen.
Yeah.
You could have a double playoff, which will happen one of these years too. So let's say it was Spieth and Johnson tie after regulation. They're playing off for the FedEx Cup, and then they would
go back and
play again. I don't know if it would be one playoff. I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out if that becomes the case.
I'd be down for that.
Television, Thursday through Friday, 1 to 6 p.m. on the Golf Channel. Saturday, 12:30 to 2:30 on the Golf Channel, followed by 2:30 to 6 p.m. on NBC. Sunday, noon to 1:30 on the Golf Channel, 1:30 to 6 on NBC. So there's no gap in the Golf Channel to network coverage this year, or in this particular tournament like there usually is. So let's take a look at the top 5 here. Jordan Spieth comes in number 1. Justin Thomas, number 2, Dustin Johnson, 3, Marc Leishman, 4, and Jon Rahm, 5. And I would mind seeing this tournament just be a 4-round showdown between those 5 guys, or even the top 3. Spieth, Thomas, Johnson. I think that what this FedEx Cup has done is given us a real quality at the very top, which are really the guys who have a chance to win. So let's start with Spieth. He won the FedEx Cup title 2 years ago from the number 2 spot. Now he's seeking to become the first number 1 seed since Tiger Woods in 2007 to win the Tour Championship. Tiger also won the 2009 FedEx Cup from the number 1 spot, but didn't win the actual tournament at East Lake. Spieth wins, he'll join Tiger as the only 2-time FedEx Cup champs. Throughout the playoffs, he lost in that playoff to Dustin Johnson at the Northern Trust, finished solo second by 3 shots to Justin Thomas at the Dell Technologies, and then tied for 7th at the BMW. So obviously playing good, and there's some people even said, look, Spieth kind of backed off. Leishman had such a big lead that Spieth didn't expend the mental energy that he normally would in that final round in preparation for the Tour Championship. He's got some history at East Lake, tied for 17th in 2016 last year. 2015 he won, shooting 68, 66, 68, 69. 2014 tied for 27th. In 2013 tied for 2nd. If he doesn't win, he has a reasonable chance to win the FedEx Cup title anyways with a top 5 finish, and can still finish as low as 29th and have a mathematical chance of winning the FedEx Cup.
And your point there with not having to win, and you wanting to see the top 5 or top 6. That's why they need to reset and like just go top 10 and winner take all. Not you're playing off all season long to get the points to get to the top 125 and the top 100 and the top 70. All right, after that, if it's going to be your Super Bowl, have it mean something where you have to win it to win the big money, and not that he's coasting in, but you remember, and they've changed it a little bit, but remember how Tiger was so far ahead. He skipped like 2 tournaments one year, I think, and still won it.
Well, that's ridiculous.
And that's changed, but I like your point. Let's have a real playoff in that last one. Make it winner has to win the tournament, and then you get all the money. And obviously they're going to get big checks. And I think even though it's only 8 guys or 10 guys, the way the top 10 is now, who's not going to watch that? I mean, that's a great group of guys, and it would be a great tournament. And I just like the way you're thinking on that, and that's the way it should be.
What if it was 4 guys? That's it. One group, one foursome, 4 rounds for all the marbles. Mm-hmm. Biggest match of all time, $50 million prize to the winner.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I like match play as well for the last 8, maybe top 8 guys, match play.
Or
16
even,
guys, match play.
Anything's better than having 30 guys with a mathematical chance to win. I mean, come on.
Too many. I think that the playoffs this year have been great because they produced champions like Johnson and Spieth, and now Leishman even.
Right.
And Justin Thomas. I mean, well, Spieth didn't win, but he was in contention. But we had all these big-time showdowns. But why not guarantee those big-time showdowns by cutting that field down?
Yeah.
At the end of the Wyndham Championship, the top 30 then make it to the playoffs. And then from there, the top 16 make the next round.
Sure.
I don't know. If you're going to I think it would add to the luster of these events if it was in a super elite small field.
That's the thing. It's like, Leishman won this week, and it was basically a runaway. And the only thing we're talking about is who got into the top 30. Like, really, who cares about that? I mean, a couple. They're bigger names that got in, and some got knocked out.
It's a feather in their cap. The rookie Xander Schauffele and Cantley, who hit with a big comeback year, continues and gets into the. It's a feather in their cap for sure. But they don't have a chance to win it all, and so why even show up?
Well, and that's the other thing. It is feather in their cap, but the fans don't really like. I mean, casual fans won't even know that they're not there. Guys like us and people that watch our show and diehards, that's interesting to us as well. But just get down to it, man. Just finish it off with. I like 8. I like that number just for more discussion during the tournament. But I don't
think the 8th place guy should have a chance to win either at this point. Look at the names that we're talking about: Thomas, Dustin Johnson, Spieth, and then Leishman and Jon Rahm. I really don't feel like Leishman or Jon Rahm at this point deserve a chance to win it all. Those top 3 guys are the big guns on the tour. Spieth, Justin Thomas, and Dustin Johnson this year. Those are the big guys, and it would be fine with me if it was just those 3 teeing it up.
I just like more discussion, more to talk about with adding the other extra few guys. I want to see 8 teams in the college football playoff too. Mm-hmm. I just like a little bit more drama, a little more things that could happen.
Well, that would be great for college football, or if this was even match play. But right now, I'm telling you that who's 8th place in the standings? Who's 7th place?
You just said Matsuyama's
7th. I should actually.
So if he won that, he'd be a worthy champion.
Yeah, he's had a great year.
He's had a great year. He's won 3 times.
That's why I don't feel
just had a rough month.
Bad about not or about adding those 3 to 4 other guys. So. Format I'm fine with. It was just straight stroke play like it is, but just have those guys go at it for 4 days, 8 guys, and I think it gives the commentators more to talk about. There's more storylines with it, and a couple of those guys in the 5 through 8 could be major winners.
So I wonder what the marketing side of the PGA Tour would say with a limited field. Coca-Cola is a major sponsor, right? So if there's 2 people playing, they're on TV for a short period of time, Coca-Cola says, not worth the money to me.
That could be part of it, too.
I don't know.
Ricky Fowler's 6th, by the way. So Justin Rose is 8, and Brooks Koepka's 9. And,
so Brooks Koepka's not even in the top 8.
Koepka being 9 and
U.S.
Open champ. Yeah.
That's a storyline right there. You know?
I guess there's no clear answer to what size of the field. If you're to go to match play or something smaller, it's tough on the size of the field because you got a 4-day event, so you can't. If you had 4 people play match play, it's 2 days. It's over.
Yeah, I think if you match play, you got to go to 16 or something like that to give it a little bit more.
How about this?
Because you want Sunday to be the marquee.
Yeah.
Right.
How about the playoffs? It's 3 weeks long. The top 16 guys on the Tour FedEx Cup point standings get into the 3-round playoff, and you go cumulative scoring throughout all 3.
Yeah, I like that too. I think part of those things with the the bigger numbers is not wanting to take money off the table from guys 30 and above. That's why they pare it down slowly, I feel. I think I just like the this one be the big one. It's a winner take all. The other ones are playoffs to get in, and you pare yourself down and you try to get into that spot.
Right.
I just don't think they'll let. I don't think the players would let that happen where so many guys were having no food on the table, so to speak, for the last 3 weeks, where they're just that many
they'll
guys
still
being
be
off.
fine. Those guys would still be okay.
No, I know that. I'm just saying it's like they want to make as much as they can. I think being off for 3 straight weeks because you're out of the top 30, I don't know if they would ever.
Well, it's also,
I don't disagree with you. I just don't know if they would ever do that part of it.
It's also on this one golf course, and anybody that does any DraftKings or any type of follows the PGA knows that one of the most important things is the horse for a course. Yeah. What guys play good on what courses and what guys play good on certain types of greens.
Right.
And so for the biggest tournament, the Super Bowl for the PGA Tour, it's always on this one course that will favor certain players, and certain players might not like it. So I don't like that part of it either. But golf's just so different, and the PGA Tour is trying to structure their season the same way that all the other major sports do, with a big final Super Bowl finals, to end the season. I think they've done an okay job of it, but it's just not like that, and I think it's because golf by nature is just different.
Yeah, so, I think we're all in agreement that it could probably be 10 or less, and then also just a little bigger finish. They just aren't getting it to the end.
Like NASCAR has the same kind of playoff format, but they still have 32 cars in the last race, don't they? Or 40 cars?
Yeah, well, and that's more to the point of what I was saying about taking money off the table. They don't. Everybody races every race still, but that's the final 10 with 10 to go, I believe. So those guys.
The other courses cars are just out there to fill up space.
Right. Exactly. So.
But there's prize money.
There's still money to be had.
They can't win the.
They can't win the
NASCAR,
Cup.
FedEx Cup, whatever that's called, Winston Cup, probably, or whatever.
Well, it used
called.
to be. Now it's called something different. Who knows?
I don't even know what it's at now. It changes every other year.
But so they have a full field. They don't have 10 cars racing around the track.
But they do have only 10 guys
that can win
it.
Right.
And that's it. So that would be, something to think about
similar
too.
to this.
I do like for the first couple of weeks being able to move up, but I think once you get to that either 2 weeks or last week, just lay it out there. It's these guys and be done with it. Sure, if there's other guys that want to play, but I think that would take away from it too in golf, because then if somebody that's 70th wins the tournament,
right,
the luster of winner take all goes away, even though it'd be one.
Well, that's essentially what they're doing. The 30th place guy could win the tournament, and he's not winning the FedEx Cup.
Right.
So I would just like to see to qualify for this, you need to win it, and that's what you win. But like I said, there's so much to it. But back to the top 5 players, Justin Thomas comes in at 2. No players won more than Justin Thomas this season. 5 victories, including his first major at the PGA Championship. Won the Dell Technologies Championship in Boston, seeking to put his name on the FedEx Cup trophy alongside his good friend and rival Jordan Spieth. In the playoffs, he tied for 6th at the Northern Trust, won by 3 strokes at Dell, tied for 47th at the BMW. So kind of a little departure from as well as he's been playing. He played at East Lake in 2016, tied for 6th, so he likes the course, finished 5 under. If he doesn't win, he still obviously has a reasonable chance of winning the FedEx Cup title with a top 3 finish, and can finish as low as a 2-way tie for 6th and still have a mathematical chance of winning the FedEx Cup. So you got Thomas, who we've already said is the front runner for Player of the Year, and he could just lock that up. I like Justin Thomas this week. We'll get our picks here before we're done. Dustin Johnson coming in at 3rd. Came so close to winning the FedEx Cup title last year. Had Ryan Moore or Kevin Chappell won the sudden death playoff against Rory McIlroy, DJ would have claimed the FedEx Cup. which again is just a silly scenario for crowning your champion of your season. He wasn't even on the course. He was watching, rooting for Kevin Chappell and Ryan Moore. He won a sudden death playoff against Jordan Spieth at the Northern Trust. He tied for 18th at the Dell, tied for 33rd at the BMW, so another guy who seemed to have fallen off a little bit. But great history at East Lake. 2016 tied for 6th, 15 tied for 5th, 2013 tied for 5th, 2012 tied for 10th, and then prior to that, his other 3 starts were all in the 20s, so he plays well at this course. He hasn't won at this course, but plays well. And, of course, he's played better the past couple of years than is just about anybody. So if he doesn't win the tournament, obviously a reasonable chance. If he was to finish second, he can, or as low as a tie for 4th, he'd still have a mathematical chance of winning the FedEx Cup. So you got Dustin Johnson. And then you got the 2 kind of guys who I think is an obvious step down from that big 3. You got Marc Leishman, who missed the cut of the Northern Trust, tied for 3rd at the Dell, and then went wire to wire at the BMW for the win, so trending up. He played at East Lake in 2009, his Rookie of the Year season, tied for 28th. If he doesn't win the FedEx Cup, he would need like a second-place finish, or if he didn't win the Tour Championship, the tournament, he would need a second-place finish or finish as low as tied for 3rd to still have a chance. Previous FedEx Cup finishes tied for 68, 68th, 59th, 44, 72nd, 46. So this is new ground for Leishman here in the Tour Championship. He hasn't been here since 2009, his rookie season. And then finally you got Jon Rahm rounding out the top 5. And again, we're go with the top 5 because if these guys win the tournament, they win the FedEx Cup. Right. So you got Jon Rahm making his first FedEx Cup playoff appearance. Been impressively consistent all year long with top 5 finishes in each of his 3 playoff starts. Still, he had to sweat out a potential birdie bid by Ricky Fowler on the 72nd hole at Conway Farms that would have knocked Rahm out of the top 5. No one would be surprised if he emerged as the FedEx Cup champ, but would he be a deserving FedEx Cup champ with he hasn't closed out and won in very many tournaments this year. He tied for 3rd at the Northern Trust, 4th at the Dell, 5th at the BMW. So I mean, how solid is that? More solid than Jordan Spieth, who doesn't have a victory either, but only has 2 top 5s. It's his first appearance at East Lake, and he can finish as low as a 2-way tie for 2nd and still have a chance to win the FedEx Cup. So, is our winner this week going to come from those 5 guys?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so.
I think so, too. Now, who do you think? I think it's going to be Jordan Spieth. I'll tell you why. I mean, obviously the guy is playing well. I think that of all it seems like Spieth can win tournaments when he's not playing at his best, where when Dustin Johnson wins tournaments, he's just cruising, right? Yeah. When Justin Thomas wins tournaments, he's just kind of cruising. It seems like Spieth wins tournaments when he's struggling a little bit. Case in point, the Travelers this year. And I think that, if you believe in mathematics, that if he ends up with a showdown against Dustin Johnson again, that law of averages, he'll beat him this time instead of losing in the playoff like he did the first week. And I think that if he ends up showing down with Justin Thomas, his good friend, that he will, kind of out compete Justin Thomas. I just think Jordan Spieth is the best competitor in the group, and he's obviously playing well. And with 2 second-place finishes in the FedEx Cup and law of averages, it's time. He's won it before. He has continued, despite the blip in the radar after the chunked wedge at Augusta, on hole 12 at Augusta, he has continued to be the only player that is really starting to rival or be on pace a little bit with Tiger Woods, at his age.
Win with his B game.
And this is another chance for him to, get his second FedEx Cup title. Like Tiger Woods, the only other guy to win 2. So I like Spieth. And I think he's going to win the FedEx Cup, his second.
I like him a lot, but I don't like him enough to pick him to win it. I'm going to go with Jon Rahm. I think he, third, fourth, and fifth in the 3 tournaments. I think he's going to, kind of break that wall down and get this win. He's been really, really consistent this year, and I just think he's got that mental toughness in that part of his game too, like Spieth does, where he's going to be that guy that we've been looking for to compete with Spieth and have a couple guys, battling in the next few years. I think he's going to win the tournament and win the FedEx Cup.
Jon Rahm.
Jon Rahm.
That's a dark horse.
I mean, I guess for top 5, I guess that's a dark horse.
According to this panel, it's a dark horse, or some members of this panel.
Well, a guy who has
he's
tons
young.
of top 5s, but hasn't seemed to learn to win yet.
Right.
You got other 3 guys in the top 5 are major champions. 2 of them are multiple major champions, and one of them has 5 wins this year to Rahm's 1. But
True.
That's why I call him a dark horse within that top 5. Obviously, one of the best young players on tour,
Sure.
and when he's.
I give you that in the top 5 for sure, but I just feel like this is his time. He's going to break through, and what better week to do it when $15 million is on the line.
Right.
The next great Spanish player.
I think you guys made quality picks. However, I disagree with both of you.
Perfect. That's what we want.
I'm going to go with Justin Thomas. I just think it's his year.
Hard to disagree.
It's hard to disagree with any of the picks
Yeah.
of the ones we've mentioned, but just I think it's his year. I think he started out strong in Hawaii, and he's played well the last month. I think last week finished 47th, I think the stats show. Maybe just a little breather. Okay, I just think it's his turn to shine. I like your comment about him and Spieth and a stare down on Sunday afternoon. I don't think it's going to bother Justin Thomas to stare down Jordan Spieth,
Right.
or be stared down by Jordan Spieth. I just think it's his time, and I think he's done a great job this year. And I'm picking him wholeheartedly to win the tournament and the FedEx Cup.
It's nice that we picked 3 different guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of thought I could convince you both with my argument.
You were
for
convincing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very good argument, definitely. I mean,
Rhett was convincing too.
he might not. He might still be on my DraftKings team.
So
And him and Thomas are so young, and obviously Rahm as well. The DJ's in his 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
Day is.
Leishman is in his 30s, and Jason
Day.
Day, another one of those guys, and even Rory's older than
Yeah.
Spieth and Thomas. So it's amazing that these guys are so young. I think Thomas had the kind of year this year that people have been waiting for, and he's got his first major. And you might be looking with Spieth and Thomas at a Nicholas Watson type of rivalry, or
Hopefully. That would be
a
awesome.
Norman Azinger rival, or Norman. Who is Norman's biggest rival? Brownie, would you say?
well, Faldo and Price. Probably
Yeah, that's
during
right.
that stretch.
Nick Price.
Yeah, they took a
Faldo.
couple majors from him.
Took him down a couple times. It might be more like Nicklaus and Weiskopf, even though Weiskopf didn't win much. They were about the same age.
Yeah,
I think they're a
Watson
year
was
apart.
much younger than
Nicholas
Nicholas.
is Watson's 10 years younger. Yeah.
The thing is, with
So-
these guys are so much younger, winning so much because they play
Yeah.
so much more tournament golf,
Yeah.
like on
Younger.
a bigger stage,
Sure.
not just local tournaments. Not
Yeah.
your high school team tournaments. They're traveling all over the country.
Right.
At so much younger of an age, 12 years old, 13 years
Yeah.
old. So they're
They're
just
prepared.
They're so used to it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you see those pictures of Thomas and Spieth when they were playing against each other at 13 years old. I mean, these guys have been going at it forever. So
Right.
hopefully it continues on the big stage. But there's going to be guys coming up behind them that are doing the same thing that we don't know about yet. But we said who was the next Tiger. Maybe there never will be one, just because there's so
Right.
many of them that are so good and so close to each other. So
I
it's,
agree.
It's better for golf, though, I believe, because there's so many more guys that are going to
Might
make each
make
other better.
Chasing those records very difficult because it'll level the results out because
Yeah.
they're all going to win 5 majors.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to win 20
right.
or 14 or 12 or anything like that, So, which is great for us.
Unless Jordan Spieth does it.
Well, maybe Jordan Spieth, but Rory's got 4. Don't forget Rory.
Yeah.
Okay.
He seemed to lose his putting touch about
2 years ago.
15 years prior to Tiger losing his in his career.
You say that, you're right though, Jim. With we were talking about the majors earlier. Jordan seems to be like the one that can grind through and maybe continue on that upwards rise and get to 10, 12 majors, but I don't know if anybody will ever get past 10 again.
Right.
You know, this is as good as these guys are on beating each other up so much. But
Yeah, because the chance to win in 2 a year is slim.
Yeah, 10 would be like the major accomplishment in this generation, I feel.
Talking about Nick Faldo and Nick Price, those guys were like ultra dominant, but for a very short window compared to Tiger.
Yeah.
You know, and Price was dominant for maybe a good 5 or 6 years, but not enough to accumulate the type of major championships that Nicklaus or Woods did over more than a decade of dominance.
Look how dominant Mickelson was. He's at, what, is he at 5 or 6?
Well, Tiger won all of his.
Right.
If Tiger Woods was never born, Mickelson would have won 15 majors maybe.
Right.
Phil's got 3 green jackets.
Yeah.
A British Open and a PGA.
PGA.
No U.S. Open. So.
Right. So.
Well, real quick here, the PGA Tour announced it will implement a new integrity program effective January 1st, 2018 to protect its competitors from potential outside influences related to gambling. So it's basically a program that's going to educate and also monitor betting patterns using an algorithm and some computers to kind of detect gambling issues that the players could be involved in, whether they're throwing an event or helping another player somehow. But it's not just for the PGA Tour; it's for all 6 tours at the PGA Tour. So I could see this being an issue on maybe the PGA Tour Malaysia or South America maybe. I don't think there's too much money for these guys to win and lose on the PGA Tour that they're not going to bet money on Vegas and then throwing in the towel just to. I don't see that happen on the PGA Tour, but thought that was interesting to note. Just a reminder, Tour Championship this week, our final episode of the year next week, where we preview the President's Cup. And I'll say it right now, I'm not a big President's Cup fan. It means it's all right, it's better than nothing. But the U.S. versus the world, except for Europe, what is it? What is it? It's nothing. I would rather see. Even just like the East versus West PGA Tour breakdown or North versus South, a civil war, something. But this international, even if it's
a beef up exhibition.
You got what does Jonathan Vegas, Hideki Matsuyama, and Jason Day all have in common? They're President's Cup teammates. That's about it. So, anyways.
So we'll preview it, but I don't know if we'll be reviewing it.
It's fun to watch the match play, but they build that thing up like it's some kind of big battle. It's just, to me, it's nothing even close to the Ryder Cup. I would even almost do away with it. But
I'm just glad it's not at 2 a.m. like it was 2 years ago over in Asia.
Yeah.
That was all of it was in the early morning hours. None of it was in regular time.
Well, one last thing, the Evian Masters for the women, what a fiasco. They cut it short to 54 holes. They want to say it's the LPGA's 5th major, but everybody seems to agree that it doesn't even come close. The 6-hour final round on Sunday for it. So just thought I'd throw that in there. It's a cool little event, all the pink and stuff, and it's kind of neat over there in France, but they're trying to manufacture that to be the 5th major on the LPGA Tour. A lot of people can't even name the 4 majors on the LPGA Tour, but with the 4th one, the Dinah Shore is probably the one people would forget.
You think they'd try and go up against the FedEx Cup with a major that's not even in the States. You can't watch it in normal time. It's just that didn't match up at all. That was just a mess all the way around. They used to have that in the summer, I think. It was a different time of the year.
Well, it'll be fun to watch. Watch the Tour Championship this week, and then we'll be back next week. So thanks for spending some time with us on the GolfJ.com podcast. Connect with us online on Twitter at the GolfJ, on Instagram at the _GolfJ, on Facebook at facebook.com/GolfJ. All of our episodes and the best of the wide world of golf on the web can be found at GolfJ.com. Until then, we'll be back next Monday night at 9 p.m. Until then, hit 'em long, not often.
GolfJ.com